few months to the start of the 2015 general election, and the Independent National Electoral Commission has decided to increase the polling units to about 150,000 by adding over 30,000 units into the electoral process. On this week's edition of the program, he explains that the decision is to increase access to the voting process. Hello there, glad to have you join us on the program this week. I'm Gloria Umezuike. The Independent National Electoral Commission faced torrents of backlash, mostly from the political class, after announcing the creation of an additional 30,027 polling units across the country. However, the Commission has been explaining the rationale behind this announcement. Well, I had an interview with the Chief Press Secretary to the INEC chairman on this issue. But up ahead, after holding a meeting with the leadership of the Independent National Electoral Commission, the Senate Committee on INEC has advised the electoral body to shelve the idea of creating more polling units. Take a listen.
The logistics of them trying to explain to people where their new polling units will be, it will not be an easy thing to do, and it's not easy for them. They have to, it must be a continuous thing, and do they have the logistics to do that for 3 months? It's not possible, so it will be difficult. But if it was done immediately after 2011 election, then we have time. By now everybody would have known where their polling units are, so if you come to a polling unit and then you stand there at the end during accreditation, your name is not there, your name has been moved to a different polling unit, you will be frustrated and leave. So what they did, like I said, is right. There's nothing for people saying that he must have an agenda or whatever. No, there's no agenda, because if you go through the paperwork and what he gave us on it, and his explanation is there, it's very clear. What they did is right, but the problem is that the timing is completely wrong. No, we are not against what he did. What they did was right. Like I said, like I explained earlier, there's a polling unit in Wuse 2 that is about 4,000 registered voters. And with that, it's practically impossible for you to be able to have them get accredited and then vote. Most of the time, when you have 4,000 people in a place, some people with tendencies that some of them will walk away. So what they are doing is right, because they're trying to decongest the listing. But all we are saying is that the timing is wrong. This is very close to the election, and with all the security problems that we have, that will be good for him to postpone it until after the 2015 general election.
I'm being joined by Mr. Kayode Idowu, who expatiates on the polling system. Mr. Kayode Idowu, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gloria, for having me.
Well, let's begin with the most controversial subject at the moment, the creation of the additional 30,000 polling units. We understand that a lot of people are concerned this is coming just before the 2015 general elections. So really, what's your perspective about this hullabaloo right now?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Most controversial indeed, but unfortunately it's a needless controversy. Because
needless?
Yeah, it's absolutely needless. Because what it requires to deal with the issue is for us to be dispassionate and take on the facts and the figures that INEC is putting in the public domain and interrogate the exercise on that basis. Unfortunately, much of the reaction that you have had in the public space is based basically on the primordial sentiment of revenue sharing. If you are sharing what goes to me and what goes to another person. And really, these are issues that deal more with functionality rather than sharing. Yes, you have to distribute something, but you are distributing something based on functionality and the need factor.
Okay, explain that.
Now, we have a voter register, it is a public document. That voter register contains the number of voters that we have registered for each state as we have it today. We are working on the principle that ideally a polling unit, every polling unit should service no more than 500 people across board. And it is a universal method. Anybody can just apply that principle to say, okay, if you have X amount of voters, divide it up by 500. How many polling units should ideally service the state? And that's the thing. Yes, it also has a political element, and INEC is well aware and sensitive to that, to this fact of once you distribute. That's why even when you divide it up, like I said, you discover that as we speak, there are even some areas where under the existing regime, which we have been carrying forward since 1996, under the existing regime, if you take up their voter population size and you divide it up by 500, what they have is in excess of what they ideally should have. INEC is sensitive to that and said, look, nobody is losing anything, because by the time you ask anybody to lose something now, there will be an uproar. So everybody keeps what he has. I mean, what the state, every state keeps what it has. But then out of the outstanding, the commission also, also considered the political element to say, okay, because if you distribute something and you don't give some at all, there will still be an uproar. People will say, why don't you give me something when you are giving somebody? So pick a percentage of what you have and distribute it to everybody on the basis of equality, whether there is need or there is no need. Give it out to everybody. And that is the 15%. To say 15% of the PUs to be created, give it to everybody, whether they have in excess or they don't have in excess, give it out. Then the remaining 85%, that is the one that you now use to address the need, which is the original intention of the exercise. So that you use to now look at, if a state has this X amount of voters, how many, and each polling unit is to service 500 people. How many polling units does that state need ideally? That's where you have the 85% servicing that factor. And so these are the things that the commission has done. And like I said, if we interrogate it on that level, then we'll begin to see where it makes sense and where it does not, if it does not.
Particularly because a lot of people, brought